guys, so in this video I'll show you how to get that disposable camera effect similar to the ones that David Dobrik takes, but without actually having a disposable camera. I'm going to be taking 2 of my own photos that were taken on an iPhone using Flash, and then I'll edit them in Lightroom, which is a free mobile app. So now I have Lightroom open, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to crop out a little bit from the top and a little bit from the bottom. Now moving on to light, I'm going to bring the exposure up to about 0.17. I'm going to bring the contrast up to about 46. I'm going to bring the highlight up as well to about 54. I'm going to bring the shadows up to about 48. And then the whites down 48. And then the blacks down to 14. Now moving on to our curve, I'm going to adjust my green curve, bringing it up and in some. That'll add some green to the shadows and making it more of that disposable camera feel. I'm going to also adjust the white curve, bringing the highlights down and in some as well. Now onto color, since mine is really warm, I'm bringing the tint down and I'm bringing the tint up and the vibrance up as well. And then I'm going to adjust my oranges and make them a little bit more red. If you've noticed on all David's photos, because of the disposable camera, they seem to be more red. Now on to effects. For the split toning, if you move it left and right, that'll affect the hue of the highlight or shadow, and then up and down will affect the saturation. So for highlights, I want more of an orangey reddy color, and I'm going to pick the hue that I want and then adjust the saturation from there, moving it down. And then once I pick what I want that looks good, I'm going to move on to the shadows, and I want more of a green color, so I'm going to find a hue that looks good and then move the saturation down. And then the balance is just the balance between the highlights and shadows, and I want it more on the highlight side, a little bit warmer. Once I exit out of that, I can adjust the texture, bring it up a little bit, the clarity down to about 17. The vignette, I'm going to move that down as well, but be careful with that because if you overdo it, it'll look fake. I'm going to feather that so it's not too harsh of a line. And then the grain, I'm going to move that up. Be careful with this as well because you don't want it to look too grainy. I zoom in on the face to see how it looks. Now for detail, all I do here is adjust the sharpening and bringing that up a little. Next is selective editing. So if you click on the brush stroke and then the first button on the left, moving it up and down will affect the size. And then the button below that, up and down will affect the feathering amount. So you're just going to brush all of the background, and this will help us to edit the background separately from the foreground and help to really exaggerate that flash effect that we see in a lot of David's photos. After I get my selection, I'm going to light and then bringing down the exposure. And then I'm going to my highlights, bringing those down just a little bit. My shadows, bringing those down as well. My whites, bringing those down just a little bit, and then the blacks, bringing those down as well. Now I'm going to create a new selection and paint over both of our faces. Once I've done this, I'm going to increase the temperature a little bit and the tint as well. Now I'm going back and I'm going to apply that brush stroke that I applied on our faces onto both of our hands. In this scenario, it can be messy. It's not really going to affect the background too much. Now I'm clicking a light and I'm going to adjust the whites just a little bit to make them pop even more. Now that our editing is finally all done, you can see this is our before image and this is our after. I have one more photo that I'm going to edit really quickly for you to see. I now have Lightroom open with the final image that I'm editing. I'm going to light first, and I'm going to bring up the exposure. Then I'm going to contrast. I'm going to bring that up as well. My highlights, I'm not going to touch too much like the last image. I'm just bringing them up too. My shadows I am bringing up, and the whites I'm bringing up a little bit to about 23. And the blacks, I'm bringing them down a little as well, about 31. Now onto our curve. I'm not gonna adjust this too drastically like last image, so I'm bringing it up just a little bit and then down a little bit. The white's the same. I'm not gonna try to adjust it too much like the last image. I don't want it to be too green. Now onto color. The tint, I'm actually going to bring up the warmth because this image was already a little cool. The tint I am bringing up though to make it a little bit more of the pink. The vibrance I'm bringing up as well. And then the mix, I'm going to be doing the same thing that I did with the last image for the oranges. Bringing them a little bit redder and then bringing up the saturation as well. I'm bringing up the texture, the clarity, I'm bringing that down. And then this one for the vignette, since our subject's not so close to the edges, we can bring it down a lot and make it more exaggerated. I'm gonna feather that out a lot just so it's not too harsh. And the grain about 36, 35. Sharpening, bring it up just a tad. Same like the last video, we're gonna adjust the shadow tones and the highlight tones. Same thing, I want my highlights to be orangey and my shadows to be more of a green, and a balance more to the highlight side. Now we're going on to selective edits just like we did before. This time I'm gonna do the whole background. So now I'm going to bring down the exposure some, the contrast a little bit, bring down the shadows some, the whites, and the blacks. And that's it. So of the second photo, this is the before, and this is the after. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. I'll see you next time. Bye.